Hello, my name is Peter. I work for Future Water, and in this series on mastering WEAP, I would like to discuss with you using WEAP's API, application programming interface, for advanced result analysis. I would like to start with thanking the Stockholm Environmental Institute and especially Jack Sieber from the American office for always supporting the development of WEAP and being available for questions. This tutorial was made in the context of a project for the Rwanda Water Resources Board, and this project was supported by FONERWA, and the name of this project was Integrated Strategic Water Resources Planning and Management for Rwanda. It all starts with a quite advanced model for the entire country Rwanda, and the model is quite detailed in having a lot of catchment, sub-catchment, demand sides, supply sides, etc. And the problem with such complex models is that you not always get the output in the format you want to use it. What we really would like to have is a kind of integrated output which is easy to convey the message to stakeholders and to policymakers. And let me just give a small example. It would be very nice if you could get a kind of summary output directly from WEAP, where you have all the integrated parameters. And as a typical example, I show you here, where you can see for one particular catchment, in this case, the Lake Kivu catchment, where you can see the inflow, the outflow, all in million cubic meters per year, and as well the amount of rainfall which is coming in, the amount of water which is evaporating, the amount of water which is consumed, etc. This is a nice graph which unfortunately cannot be prepared by WEAP. Another typical example is you really would like to have the water balance. Now in WEAP you can get water balances, but it's quite complex to get all the numbers in terms of inflows and outflows in a very nice table where you really can compare the million cubic meters and the millimeters per year. And what we know, of course, from a water balance in general, it should be closed if there is not so much changes. Another typical example is you would like to have a kind of integrated figure where you've got all the major hydrological components like the precipitation, the actual evapotranspiration, the groundwater recharge, and the surface runoff, all in one graph. So in some cases, WEAP is not providing all these options to do this. And in this small instruction video, we will teach you how to use that. Before that, let's go back to WEAP. We assume that you've got a fairly good level of knowledge of WEAP, so you know that there is various screens. So we are now at the schematic screen where you really can see all the rivers, all the diversions, reservoirs, etc., etc. There is, of course, this section where you can go to data, and in this section you can put in all kinds of data. Since this is a quite advanced model, it will take some time before all the data has been loaded. Here is just some data. And we are, of course, all very familiar with the results sections. And WEAP is providing all kinds of output. And as a typical example, we see here the land class inflows and outflows for one particular subcatchment. And you see all the major components, including, for example, the amount of precipitation, the amount of surface runoff, the amount of interflow, the amount of flow to the groundwater, and all the components of the water balance. However, what I said before, sometimes you just require some other output and you want to automate your output. Now, WEAP has a kind of feature which is hidden and which is a little bit more complex, which is called API, Application Programming Interface, scripting. And let's just spend a couple of minutes on the basics of this scripting. So in WEAP, you go to Advanced, you go to Scripting, and you go to Edit Scripts. Okay, so this is the script editor. And in the script editor, you can give commands to WEAP to do something in a kind of automatic way. Before we go to the more advanced using WEAP, let's just do some very simple examples on how scripting works. We can just say print, and what to print, say hello world. And once we've put this comment, we say run script, and at the bottom we see the output of this script, and it's saying print hello world. If we run the script again, we get it again and again, and therefore very often we start with a statement which is called CLS, which stands for clear screen. And now if we run the script, we just get only once hello world. Another useful command is to say the time with it. So we say print hello world and then print the time. We can say run script and then we got hello world and the time. And probably if we do it a little bit later, we get, of course, the other time. Okay, this is a small introduction. The beauty of scripting is, of course, that you can automate things. So, for example, if we say we want to have something for each month, we say for month is 1 to 12, and then we say print the month, and then the end statement for a for is always next. If we run this script, we get something like hello world, we get the time, and then we get 12 numbers for the 12 month. Okay. Interesting, but probably not what we are looking for making a connection with WEAP. But let's try to make a connection with WEAP. Let me just remove the for, etc., etc. And what we are going to do, we go to the right, and here is the connection with WEAP. And there are two tabs here, and I think the most relevant at the moment is the WEAP variables. So I click on the WEAP variables, and it will take some time to load it because we've got a very advanced model. And what we see here, and probably you are familiar with this looks like a little bit the normal input data for WEAP. And let me go to one example where we are saying, okay, I'm very much interested in some of the getting some of the output from WEAP. So I'm going to demand sites and catchment. And for example, I want to get some information about the domestic. And let's just take the first one, domestic, say Kivu A. And now an important step is coming, and it took myself quite some time to remember this. I press down my mouse button, I drag this to the left, and I drag it to the line where I want to get some information, and I release. And then we got this information where you get all the output as well as the input, which is available for this domestic water requirement. And let's say I'm interested in the supply delivered. I go to supply delivered and I just click. So let me repeat it again. I go to one of the nodes I'm interested in, press my left mouse button, drag it to the left, go to the line where I would like to have this information, release my mouse button, and go to the variable I want to have this information. And at the moment, I'm interested in the amount of water which is delivered. So we've got something which is saying, I want to have from the WEAP model a branch. The name of the branch is demand sites and catchments. And which one? I want to have the domestic for the Lake Kivu subcatchment A. And the variable I'm interested in is the supply delivered. And the value I want to have is, and now the critical thing is coming, something from a calculation year and something from the calculation timestamp. Now, in order to get some relevant information out of this, I do a little trick. I take this line, I copy this line to have it as a kind of example. And the first line I put in front REM, that means it's a remark, so it's ignored by the scripting. And in order to get this information, of course, I want to have something which I'm saying print. So print means it has to go to the screen down. And what do I want to have? For example, let's say I want to have information of the year 2050 and which month, for example, the month 1. Okay, so now probably if I run this script, and I will do that right now, I get some information here at the bottom. First, of course, there's the hello world. There is something on printing the time. And now I get a number. And this number is the amount of water in cubic meters, which is delivered in the year 2050 on month number 1 in January. Okay, so we are back in this advanced Excel tool. And I just want to start very simple. And what we see here is the same command which we used in the WEAP API, where you see, I want to have some information, and let me make this a little bit bigger here. I want to have some information on the demand side and catchment domestic for Lake Kivu number subcatchment A. I want to have the output, which is called supply delivered. The beauty thing is you can also get some additional scenario if you want to have it for other scenarios. And then if I go more to the right, then this code is providing this information for yearly output. So for the year 2040 in total, the year 2041, etc., etc. So this is a kind of automated thing where if I run a macro, the macro is going to connect to WEAP and it's collecting all the results from WEAP. Now, of course, if you do this only for 2 lines, it doesn't make sense. But since we are also doing this for the real advanced and quite a lot of numbers, like for example in this tab, where you see a lot of output is required from WEAP, like the area for fish ponds, for irrigation, all kinds of information can be obtained from WEAP directly. And once we got all this information, we can summarize this in all those kind of nice graphs, in all those nice tables, and what I said before, also graphs which is showing the monthly hydrological characteristics. So it's really a way to get a lot of information very rapidly. Now, another factor which is quite interesting, for this case, we get everything for Lake Kivu catchments because that was defined here on top, Lake Kivu. Now, if we are probably interested in another one, let's say we want to get information for Mvumba, we are not saying we want to have the information for Lake Kivu, but we say we would like to have this information for the Nile Basin Muvumbu catchment. We type this in, and what we have to do, we have to run a macro which will enable us to get data out of WEAP. Now those macros are in a kind of specific spreadsheet which was developed by FutureWater. And in order to run this macro, you have to go to the tab which is called Developer. Okay. Now in some cases you don't have this tab, because it's not automatically or it's not by default enabled. If you don't have it, it's not too difficult. Go to File in Excel, go to Options, the bottom, go to Customize Ribbon. Look here at the right where you've got all the ribbons which are there. And for some people, the developer is not enabled, so just enable this developer tab, and then you've got this macro. Okay, so going back to the original spreadsheet, so what you have to do, you are going to run a macro to make a connection between Excel and the WEAP API, and then you get all the information for another catchment. So I'm going to developer, I'm going to macros, and the funny thing is you see a lot of macros which are coming from another spreadsheet which is called WEAP all. So if I go to get all the results from the spreadsheet WEAP all, we see that there is one which is called get results. I select get results, I press run, and then the macro is running. In order to see the progress, you get something here at the bottom, which is saying I'm getting the results and then the number out of the many results which are requested. And this can take quite some time if you've got advanced models, but we've got the results here. And now if we go back to the summary output, we see indeed that everything was changed. And instead of having the water balance for Lake Kivu, we get the water balance for the Mvumba catchment. And also the summary tables are adjusted. So we've got the water balance now for Mvumba, and also the monthly graphs has been adjusted. So the macros really provide you with a nice output analysis and can be used for all kinds of automated processes. Okay. And I think with this, we've covered all the basics of using WEAP APIs in combination with Excel to get fast analysis for all kinds of output which you are interested in. I really would like to end up with a big warning. What was discussed here is complex. For myself, it took me years and years to develop all those macros to get a little bit acquainted. But I think once you are a little bit acquainted with this, it's a very strong tool which can be used to analyze your output. I also think there are two types of users. I think the first user is the user which are just using the existing Excel and WEAP and macros, who can really make easy changes to get more additional output for all kinds of results which was created by the WEAP model. And I think the second type of users we are aiming at is people who are really interested in changing some of the tools by themselves. But please do remember it takes a lot of time to get acquainted with it. And if you need some help, we are always here to help you. So don't hesitate asking us for some support. And I think by this, I would like to thank you for your attention. And like normally, happy weeping and good luck with your efforts trying to get a little bit more acquainted with WEAP and the API. And on behalf of Future Water and the entire team, we really would like to thank you for your attention. Have a nice day. Bye.